Welcome to the webinar. Plenty of people still joining, so now's the time to grab a drink, a glass of water, a tea, coffee, and we'll begin in 4 or 5 minutes. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. For those of you who are just joining, there's plenty of other people also joining right now, so we'll wait a few minutes before we begin.
Recording in progress.
You can write in the chat where you're joining us from. It's always nice to know where in the world you are. Good morning. Nice to see everyone commenting about where they're joining us from. You're more than welcome to contribute or grab a quick drink before we begin. So, good morning once again to everyone. People joining all the time. So, for those of you who were early, I'm repeating myself, but please do comment and let us know where you're joining us from. And I think we can to slowly begin. So welcome everybody to this webinar. It's the 16th in the series, and it's actually going to be the last one before we take a summer break. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're European Capital of Democracy, a nonprofit organization based in Vienna with a European-wide network of partner organizations in 20 European countries and beyond. And we're dedicated to improving politics. So a little look at who's joining us in the team. Some new faces, some familiar faces, and specifically when we talk about the European City Network, we're talking about this network of 24 cities from 15 European countries. Barcelona was the first European capital of democracy, handed over the title to Vienna, who are the current European capital of democracy. And next year, Cascais will take over. So it's myself and Adela who are responsible for looking after this lovely network of cities, bringing them together so that they can learn, exchange, and engage with one another. This particular webinar series has been co-funded by the European Union as part of the Network of Towns project. And we have a consortium of 6 cities, so Antwerp, Barcelona, Bologna, Braga, Cascais, and Brussels, joined forces to create this series where cities can both teach and learn from experts in the chosen topic field. So today, we're going to learn about the Impact Garden framework, which is presented by Leila and Yannick from Unity Effect. And it's with contributions from the city of Barcelona and the city of Vienna. So after this brief introduction, I'm going to hand over to Yannick and Leila, who are going to talk a little bit about the framework itself before we dive into the examples. After both examples, we will have a Q&A session, and then we will have a summary of the entire Network of Towns project and an outlook to what we're doing next at European Capital of Democracy. So here are today's speakers, Leila, Yannick, Tony, and Marlene. And I will actually hand over now to Leila and Yannick, who perhaps would like to follow up with a bit more of an in-depth introduction before beginning their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone so much for having us today. I'll ask Yannick to bring up the slides, but yes, before we do, hello, my name is Lila. I'm originally from Brazil and I'm currently living in Bonn, Germany. Over the last couple of years, I have worked with large corporations in decarbonization projects globally, but also bringing in aspects of nature-based evaluation and project development into the climate space. And so we're really excited to be here and talking to you because we have done a lot of work within Unity Effect in trying to showcase the power of evaluation, of project development, of service support, of bringing people together through a nature-based approach. And Yannick will dive in and tell you a little bit more about the Impact Garden and all of the work that we have done together with organizations such as the United Nations, such as the Inner Development Goals, and we are then showcasing how this could be useful for cities. So I'm now supporting and participating in a lot of work that's happening in the region here in Germany with Bonn, Cologne, Düsseldorf, and we're excited to share this among the other cities in our beautiful, beautiful region here. So thank you so much for having us. I'll jump in a little bit after Yannick speaks and present to showcase the work that we've been discussing with Antonia and Marlene on how the Impact Garden can support in showcasing successful projects that have already been developed and helping also communicate what is coming up next on creating the conditions for systemic change. So Yannick, over to you, and then you'll learn a bit more about the Impact Garden.
Thank you. And also thank you so much, Laura, Adela, everybody else for inviting us and this opportunity to speak to all of you, because I think that's something that we really deeply care about. So this question of how we can support cities, municipalities on their path. And just a little bit about myself. So I have a background in sociology and then worked in the international development space. And for example, for Fairtrade International. However, I also lived in Bonn for 10 years. I got involved in civil society quite a bit, building up an intercultural community center. And as it's also the city of the United Nations, ICLEI is hosted in Bonn, etc. So there was always this bridge between the very local and the themes that move people where we are living, and also the very international. And I think this is also something that this network brings together, and just knowing the opportunity that such a network has, convenes, entails. So hoping that what we are going to present adds value to you, to some of you, and then very happy to share now a bit more, and also to say, of course, to also continue the conversation afterwards if this is something that speaks to you. So Then I will pull up the slides. And to also say, I can still see you. So in case you have any questions, especially for understanding, also please raise your digital hand or speak up, and very happy to respond. So there will be a Q&A after, of course, for more content related questions. But if there is something that's not clear to you, please ask rather earlier than later. So the flow, as Laura already presented, is an introduction to the Impact Garden. What is it that we are actually going to talk about here today? And then we will hear the examples from Barcelona and Vienna before moving into the Q&A. So before the Impact Garden, just a few words about Unity Effect. So I'm co-founder, I'm the CEO of Unity Effect, and our purpose is leading change from the inside out. We are a social enterprise. We started as a nonprofit, and we mostly work in those 3 areas that we call learning experience design. So this is also working with networks and organizations around topics such as peer learning and how to create engaging conferences, etc. It's thriving teams and leaders. This is a lot about capacity development. We have our own programs, and where the Impact Garden is rooted in is this area of regenerative measurement and evaluation. So this question or idea that we can actually approach evaluation, impact measurement in such a way that it actually nurtures the people we work with and ourselves, the causes we care about. All this combined is to create the conditions in teams and organizations in cities to thrive and have agency in a dynamic world, just knowing what all the pressures are and the challenges that we are having to respond to. So this is our work that we do. Those are some of the organizations that we have been working with. So it's lots of foundations. We like to say, like, institutions, organizations that do have a purpose, and that definitely wholeheartedly includes cities. So for example, Laila mentioned the United Nations. So if you're working with the Climate Change Global Innovation Hub, that has a very strong focus on cities and sustainable cities and regenerative cities. Now, moving to the Impact Garden. And I'm already saying this will be a very brief introduction, because then we will hear more actually from the cases of Barcelona and Vienna, which I think is also more why you are here, getting those insights and seeing how is this being applied. Can this maybe be something also for our city? So the Impact Garden, it's a method, it's a framework grounded in the regenerative paradigm. So what I shared before, I'll just rephrase that as a question, and maybe you can just ask yourself that question. So it's the framework that we are going to present originated as an evaluation framework, as a theory of change, so includes measurement. So in your specific case, how can evaluation, how can impact measurement actually be a force for good? Not something that you're reporting against at the very end of a project, but something that in the process of applying it already gives more energy than it takes to the people you work with, the organizations you work with, yourself and your team, and also the causes that you would like to advance. So how is that possible to do it? So that's our guiding question that we have. And this, of course, leads to the question of how does it not work? How is it currently being done and practiced a lot? And what we are observing is that conventional approaches to evaluation and also project development, they often don't recognize the complexity of the themes and systems that we work with. Also on city level, there's just so many actors, and the themes, they touch lives in very intimate ways, and it's very much interconnected. So to recognize that complexity. Also, current approaches often replicate existing power structure. So somebody, an institution, has the money, holds the power. Others have to conform to the norms that are then also embedded in, for example, evaluation and measurement. And also it excludes what's invisible. So for example, aspects around trust, inclusion, participation, etc. So quite often measurement is rooted in an extractive paradigm. And this is what we are shifting. So what we are inviting is to root it in a regenerative paradigm. Regenerative does not mean to sugarcoat everything, rather the opposite. It actually means let's look at things honestly. Let's understand what really works already. where strengths are, where capacities are, but also where roadblocks are. Maybe some things that we have to let go of, that we quote unquote have to decompost. So for example, projects that just don't serve anymore or don't work. But how can we learn from what we tried and can see that as opportunities to further grow? So the regenerative paradigm. Now, how we bring this together or how we see it is as we are working towards sustainability, towards inclusion, towards justice, strengthening democracy, we have those ambitions, and the language and the tools we oftentimes use, they don't serve those ambitions. And this is exactly where the Impact Garden comes in. So we really hope that this provides a language, a tool for you that you can use to support your ambitions. And I said in the beginning that it started as an evaluation framework around measurement, but we realized early on that this is more. It's also a communication framework. And so, for example, also in the conversation that I attended with you, Tony, from the city of Barcelona, this is also something that actually came up there, right? So it can actually create a shared language around the work that you are doing. I will briefly introduce the model, as said, more to explore in the very concrete cases. So this is version 2.0 that you are seeing. So the idea is that we are inviting people to think about their work with an ecosystemic lens, or the metaphor of nature. And what we also like to see is they are not us humans and then there's nature. We are nature. So yes, it's a metaphor, but in a certain way, it speaks to a deeper truth. And so what we see here is that in order to create systemic long-term changes, it emphasizes a lot the supportive conditions that we are creating, the resources that, for example, a city, people living in a city, that they can actually provide. So for example, civic participation, of course, also financial means, but not only that. And then the question, what are the supportive conditions being created, for example, in a city, for then citizens, other actors to engage meaningfully, so that this leads to short midterm outcomes, but also long-term systemic changes. And this is what we are trying to encompass here with the model. And I think it will become clear with the examples. The model also includes elements on external conditions, like an ecosystem. There are opportunities and threats from outside the ecosystem. So rain is good, floods can be dangerous. So also including this element. And then also here, role architecture speaks to clarity in terms of, for example, what are the roles that a municipality anchors? What are the roles given to citizens? Maybe also expectations that citizens have to shape their city. So really clearly describe those roles in the role architecture. So, and when all this comes together, the idea is that there is a deepened understanding of your work as a thriving, living ecosystem. Now, to maybe make this a bit more tangible, here are some further examples of the different elements, and I will not go over the details. So maybe just, you can look where something was unclear to you. You can maybe just quickly read over the examples. Because what I would still like to share in the remaining 2 minutes is 3 examples from other work that we have been doing. And the first one is for project development. So those are pictures from a whole day workshop that we have been hosting with the Inner Development Goals and the United Nations Global Innovation Network. So basically convening them together for one day to co-create project ideas around sustainable cities and systemic change. So Lila has been on ground, I've been online, co-hosting, facilitating this one-day workshop, bringing 180 people together, using the Impact Garden as the guiding method, the guiding framework, to introduce this co-creative spirit with an ecosystemic perspective. Another example, so this is not about seeing the details, so we've been using this for an impact evaluation. This is specifically from google.org. They had a 1.6 million grant that they provided to the Social Entrepreneurship Network Germany for inclusive entrepreneurship. And we have been using this framework in the report that came out of the evaluation, will be launched in the next week. So if this is a topic that you are interested in, inclusive entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, specifically also within cities, municipalities, then yeah, watch out, there's more to come. And lastly, as the third example, and this is from a workshop for internal planning. So also seeing an organization internally as a living ecosystem, and how can we work with that framework to understand what are our resources of our partners. How do we bring them together as supportive conditions as an organization to then carry out our work, provide our services. And with this, I will hand over to you, Lila, to introduce, I think it's Barcelona first.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Yannick. And as Yannick has mentioned, we have used the Impact Garden for funding. We have used it for project development, for internal planning. And what we wanted to see is how can it be supportive for cities. So thank you so much, Laura, for connecting us to both Tony and Marlena, because we then wanted to see, okay, what is already out there? So we had the opportunity to learn from the application that both of the cities handed over to the European Cities of Democracy Network. And we basically planted out everything that we learned from that document. So it was really great to see that couple of pages of documents, if you all have gone through it, the application, and try to kind of succinctly put that into a framework for people to see. So maybe Yannick, if you can bring up your slides again, and I'll ask you to be my lead there and just showcase the Barcelona example. And I'll just give a few words before I hand it over and give some questions over to Tony. But basically what we wanted to showcase is how could we showcase the vision or the guiding star of the city? Because a lot of times we have this idea, we have so many problems to fix. What are the problems that we need to fix? And kind of having this reframing of what is the guiding goal that we want to have, and visualizing that as the sun, the biggest kind of energy that we have to our planet, and then trickling down first and coming down to the roots and trying to understand, okay, what are the own resources that the city already has? What are the partner resources that are coming in? This can be from the citizens themselves, but also from the civil society, from NGOs, and then climbing up the garden itself. So it was really, really interesting to see from all of that documentation, the soil that's already been built. So the supportive conditions, the healthy soil that has become from that, the meaningful connections. So for Barcelona, there were 3,800 people together in an in-person meeting. There were participatory budgets. There were proposals for co-creation, really showcasing the impact that's been had. There are, of course, the different roles that people are taking. So you have the institutional backbone of the city, but you also have citizen power from forums. And there's also ways for us to look into learning and feedback loops into, okay, how do we know that the progress that we are having towards this actual goal and guiding star is actually progressing? So it was really good to see all of these points coming into place and be able to have a one-pager to showcase all of that work that is in the application. And to also, one of the key points of the Impact Garden is how can we not only look at the short and medium-term outcomes, but start thinking about the systemic and long-term changes. So that's one of the best parts about working with public institutions, is that we're not only thinking about the next year or even the next election cycle, we need to be thinking about the next 100 years, the next 50 years, and thinking about how our cities can be good ancestors for the citizens that will come after. So I will drop a link for you to actually go into the details for you to see what exactly Barcelona has been up to. But the big goal of this is to ask Tony a couple of questions for having been through this process with us. And Tony, if you could come off mute, I have 3 questions for you. The first one is, what was it like for you to see all of your initiatives presented in this one page in the form of a garden?
Thank you first of all, Laila and Yannick, for the effort in evaluating some of the projects that we were working and giving us this not conventional perspective. And answer to your question, I would say that this model is a valuable tool for the City of Barcelona, since it can help us to evaluate projects by promoting a holistic and regenerative approach to the impact evaluation. It's a really visual way to have everything in just one image that you can show and ask for collaboration to other departments. That sometimes is difficult when you are leading a project and you have different departments also working on. I think it's a really good way to engage other departments from the City Council to do this kind of evaluation, since it's really easy to understand what we are doing.
Very good. No, thank you so much for that. And one of the conversations that we had was that sometimes it's very difficult for the different departments to know what they are doing. And one of the key goals of the Impact Garden is to try to get us to think more systemically, to really think about systemic innovation and the interweavings of all of the different parts of the city. How do you think that this approach could help Barcelona, but also the other cities here that are being very much inspired by your example, to really think more systemically about the initiatives that are being put on the table?
I think that a really good point is this interconnected ecosystem is an easy way to see how we can interconnect with the different people that are working on that, and also that we can have a deep understanding of the project, not only a medium term, also a long term. So you can, we are really interested what this methodology can help us to improve in our evaluations from these 2 points of view: the interconnection and also the deep understanding of the project that we are working on it. And that is an easy way to the evaluation, because sometimes do an evaluation is something I would say boring or difficult sometimes if you are not, it's not your experience or your expertise. So I think this is a good way to explain other people how can we do it in a easy way and also in an understandable way.
Perfect. No, thank you very much. And thank you for sharing and reviewing and sharing also the more details of the inner goings of the city. And I see a question there from smaller municipalities, and we will definitely get to it in the Q&A. Thank you so much. And now over to Vienna with an eye on the time as well. So thank you so much, Tony. Yannick,
Thanks to you.
And for Vienna, it was really interesting because we also had a big conversation about how actually a lot of the things that were on the application have already been done, which is very good for us to think about the next steps, not only looking into what is happening now, but understanding that just like nature, our cities are never static. There's always something evolving. There's always something changing. And maybe over to Marlene, thinking about seeing, actually look at what's already been done and looking into the next steps. How do you think that this evaluation approach, as Tony was saying, that sometimes it doesn't really excite people? How could we potentially use the Impact Garden to give more energy to these processes and get people more excited to reviewing what has been and excited to build a future going forward?
That's a big question. First of all, also thanks so much to you, Laila and Yannick, for taking the time to look through all the pages. You said it, it's like so many pages, so many words. And now to see it on like one page was already so helpful and already so nice to see. And as you said, at one point I wrote to you, oh wow, all our next steps are in motion or are already completed. So that was a nice way to realize that, because in all the pages, sometimes with all your goals and all the things you want to do, you sometimes don't really see that anymore, that you're really doing and completing your task. So it was nice in the next steps to see okay, wow, we are on our way. So that's nice. So thank you. And to your question, how to make people excited, I think just like that, like giving people the questions they can ask themselves, how they kind of work together even after the project, kind of, because for us sometimes people forget that the project, it doesn't end with the last event, but like in the beginning we sit together in our small group and we plan and we think about our goals, and then there's all the project happening and events and we meet people and then we end it. And sometimes um, in a city we forget that in the end it's always coming together again, maybe in the small group, and maybe sit in front of kind of this page and fill it up and see what happened and see that we all achieved our goals. And I think that's something where we have to get to, that it's also nice to look back and see what we learned and see what we achieved.
Very good. Thank you so much for that overview as well. And if I could, one last question. As we're going through this process of kind of bringing multiple different groups together and understanding the different roles, how do you see that different departments or different responsibilities can start seeing evaluation not so much as a task that needs to be done to put into a report, but more as a task that helps us reflect on what is going on and kind of builds the next steps? And how do you think that the Impact Garden could perhaps give these people the feeling that actually evaluation isn't something complicated? It is complex, but maybe it isn't so complicated. How do you think the Impact Garden could perhaps help with that?
Mm-hmm. The next big question. Let me think about that. In my opinion, in the beginning, it always feels like a task. In the beginning, first, it's like, okay, oh, that's new. Like in the last project, we ended it with the event, and suddenly there's kind of this new task. Suddenly there's time we have to spend, time maybe even during the new projects, time we need to spend because we now monitor more stuff, or we need more people now in the end. We need more time in the end. So I think in the beginning, it always is a task, or it feels like a task. So it's like a process to come there, that it doesn't feel like a big task anymore. And how the Impact Garden can help with that, I think it's just with that you see evaluation and monitoring kind of different. It's to talk more about our impact and not that much about how many people were there or who was there. More like what changed within the project, what changed within our process, what's changed within our team. It sounds like super cloudy, but it's more like not like it. The numbers are important sometimes for impact as well, and in a city as well. If it's so much about money sometimes, but I think like to change it a bit and to think more about the impact and what we are doing good, and that we are doing so many things is, I think, a good thing. And then like seeing now with the next step, I think also as a communication tool, so to give the department like a easy way to communicate that they are doing good work in the whole of the city, kind of.
Perfect. You answered the big questions very well. Thank you so much for taking the time. And maybe now I will be the Q&A person for Yannick, because I feel like we have 2 questions already in the chat. But we are more than happy to, if you raise your hand or if you want to put other questions in the chat, please feel free. This time is for you. So thank you so much to Tony and Marlena for answering my questions. And now over to Yannick. So Yannick, question number 1 is, how adaptable is the framework for smaller municipalities or less resource cities compared to metropolises like Barcelona and Vienna?
Well, happy to respond. And I think this one is actually fairly quick, I hope, to respond. So to start by saying the framework is open source. There's an online course out there. There is a handbook out there on how to apply it. And the idea is really, it's all for free, all available, that no matter the size or the context, you can actually go and apply the Impact Garden framework as a methodology. And in that sense, maybe it might be, in case you're a smaller municipality, it might even be a bit easier to put everything on, like in one visual. And also to say that we have been using it across different scales. So I've mentioned this, 1.6 million grant and, inclusive sector in Germany, etc. At the same time, we've been using it for very small cohorts as well. So in that sense, I would say it's actually fairly or quite adoptable. And I mean, if you want to, Julia, you can also come on and just very briefly share your context, and then I'm happy to go a bit more into the specifics and into the details. But to say the general idea is that actually you can use it yourself and you don't need somebody external guiding you through the process, or you don't need a lot of financial means to actually apply the model. And
then question number 2 is a second question, also from Julia. You mentioned the Impact Garden framework is designed with a 100-year perspective, which is quite visionary. How resilient is the framework to political shifts, such as changes in leadership, party agendas, or funding priority, that often disrupts long-term initiatives? How does it maintain continuity across electoral cycles?
So here, the honest response is that we have not been using the Impact Garden in such a context where it was questioned because of changes in government, etc. So in that sense, it's a bit hypothetical, the response. However, as I would see it is, I think any framework or model or plan that is being used can be under threat, depending on the kind of changes that are happening. What I would assume an advantage of the Impact Garden is that actually people and organizations start relating to it. It can be very personal because it gives space to the resources. It somehow unveils, like where's the drivers, the energy, the motivation of people. So people start getting quite invested into the model and organizations as well. And there's that kind of relationality. So the model enables relationships and trust building, but then also people relate to the model. And I would say this is a very good foundation. Then in case, for example, it might be under threat, first of all, for people wanting to uphold it, but then also if it is dormant for a while, that it's not forgotten somewhere in the shelves. So this is a bit how I would see it. But again, it's a bit hypothetical because we did not have the case yet. And I would imagine that a Trump-like administration, of course, would put certain things under threat that are being developed here in general. But then it's not only about the model, it's also about the work itself. But maybe then the model can actually help as some sort of underground support to hold up the regenerative vision also over some years.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Yannick. And I think also my point on this is we're trying to think about nested timelines. So we're thinking about that long-term vision, but we're also thinking about the next 3 months, the next 6 months. And like I said before, we're really trying to bring all of this together into how has nature survived over these billions of years on this planet, is finding different ways of understanding those supportive conditions and adapting itself. And so that's also where we're trying to go here with the Impact Garden. And like Yannick said, all of this is open source. You can download it, you can use it with your city, you can modify it in any way. It's totally up to you to use it however you want. And luckily, we have had the opportunity to share with you the 2.0 version that is not even live online just yet, where we have added additional things such as the external conditions, such as the role architecture, through the research that we have seen many organizations put in the Impact Garden into practice. So I just dropped a link in the chat of the Impact Garden 1.0. so you can see everything that has already been happening. And Yannick, if you go to our penultimate slide there, so just move down. One more. Yes. So Yannick and I will be hosting a free 5-month cohort to help the regenerative movement understand evaluation. So you are all more than welcome to join us. I just put in a link to the interest form there. We're looking to have people from across the different sectors. So we're looking to have funders, we're looking to have social enterprises, cities, and many others that are going to join us on this process to really learn about the basics around what is it to design and measure, to reflect and evaluate, and to recognize and celebrate, to bring a little bit more of this energy to the idea of evaluation itself. So if you're interested, we're starting in July all the way down to November. We'll have kind of a free online sessions that you can join, and also live cohorts. So we're really, really excited for that. And other than that is to say thank you. Thank you so much for having us, for giving us kind of this space to showcase the work that we have been doing with large international organizations, and our wish, honestly, as people within this movement, to bring a lot of this international work into cities. I very much believe that cities have been overlooked when it comes to work around climate, when it comes to work around regeneration and social issues. And my goal over the next years is to bring all of those activists that are working on a global, to bring them down to root into the places that you are working in. And so thank you so much for your work deeply. And we hope to be of help in any way. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. I'll just drop in our email as well in case there are any further questions. But thank you so much, Laura, Tony, Marlene, and the entire European Cities of Democracy. Please feel free to count on us on anything you might need.
Thank you very much,
Great.
Adela, for moderating the Q&A, and all of our speakers today. It was really interesting to hear about the framework itself. I'm sure we've all faced those complex issues, and it can really just present it in a way that you can see the overview and have those insights from Marlene and Tony there, how it's applicable in the context of a city was absolutely fascinating. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this is the last in the series. We're going to take a summer break now. And over the last 18 months of the Network of Towns projects, we have some highlights that we want to share with you. So myself and Adela will walk you through them because it was mainly Adela doing most of the legwork in bringing all this together so that we could present it to you. So 16 webinars, perhaps you'd like to begin that?
Sure, yes, I'll take it away from here. So yes, this is our last webinar, the 16th. The SURF Network of Towns project has been running for the past 18 months and is co-funded by the EU. We've held 16 webinars, bringing together city representatives, citizens, and experts. Topics included digital participation, environmental sustainability, youth engagement, and inclusive city development. And you may find all these recordings on our YouTube channel. And I see Laura has posted all the relevant links already in the chat, but the presentation will be shared with you later as well. Moving on, we have the European City Network, the city visits, which include 6 in-person meetings hosted by member cities, each focusing on a locally selected theme. All of these outcomes are documented in our newly released European City Network Yearbook, and I'll be mentioning the ECN Yearbook and the showroom on the next 2 slides. Here we have some screenshots of the newly released ECN Yearbook, which features all the webinars and the 6 in-person meetings that we have held over the past 18 months. You may download it via the link that Laura has shared, or later on when the presentation is being shared with you. And finally, we have the showroom, which is a digital platform that includes all the project and project ideas that cities who applied for a European Capital of Democracy shared with us as part of their application. You can check it out and read through short descriptions as well as pictures of the various projects that cities are implementing in their cities.
So yeah, there's definitely a running theme throughout this webinar of giving a sort of overview and collecting all these ideas into a space that people can explore in a easily accessible way, I hope. So yes, please do download the yearbook, have a look at the showroom. If there's a city that you're particularly interested in or a topic field that you're particularly interested in, you can filter for them and check it out. So that was the past 18 months, and now looking forward to the rest of 2025, what do we have in store for you? The next big event we have is the Innovation in Politics Awards 2025, and it's of course going to be hosted by the current European Capital of Democracy, Vienna. And quite a few years ago, Vienna was also the host of the first ever Innovation in Politics Awards. So it's very nice to bring the awards home. And it will be held in the Rathaus in the Vienna City Hall on the 17th of September. So if you see the little blue square, you can click on that link to pre-register and attend the event. And it's a good idea to just save the date in your calendar now. So there will be 80 finalists, 10 finalists across 8 categories, and the winner of each category will be announced on the night itself. So I do hope many of you will be able to join us then. I'm looking forward to it. And other big news is the European Capital of Democracy 2027. Applications for this title open this September. So from September to the end of November, cities themselves can apply to become the next European Capital of Democracy. All the cities who apply, who fulfill the eligibility criteria, will then become part of the European City Network. They will join the in-person meetings, the online events like this one, and be able to learn and collaborate with their fellow network members, as we've seen today with examples from Barcelona and Vienna. So the call is open to all cities with over 100,000 inhabitants who are Council of Europe member states and Kosovo. And the whole idea, of course, is to promote democracy in the Democracy Year 2027, to really showcase how you engage citizens and build policies and the direction that your city is going in to improve democracy for all. So on that note, we have some reflections from the first European Capital of Democracy, Barcelona. And so you can see here that Mayor Colboni spoke about how their city hosted numerous events, exchanges, and initiatives that fostered dialogue, promoted inclusion, empowered citizens to take an active role in shaping their futures. As we look back, we can be proud of the involvement of a diverse range of institutions, entities, initiatives that worked in Barcelona for the lasting impact of democracy in our city and beyond.
And we have the current European Capital of Democracy, where Vienna, obviously, and the mayor of Vienna, Michael Ludwig, shared a quote where he reflected that, "I am proud that we have been able to convince the jury of European citizens with our concepts on how to further advance democracy. As European Capital of Democracy, Vienna will demonstrate how social cohesion can be further strengthened through the participation of citizens."
And then the next European Capital of Democracy 2026, Mayor Carreras said, "Being chosen as European Capital of Democracy 2026 is both an honor and an opportunity, one that we embrace with commitment, innovation, and an unwavering belief in the power of civic engagement." So there you have it, some reflections and hopefully some inspiration for your city potentially to apply for European Capital of Democracy and join the network. So, as is tradition, all that remains is for you to please share your thoughts with us. You can scan the QR code here and give us your reflections on this webinar in a few words. So just give you a moment to scan that before we switch over to the Mentimeter results. Inspiring, yes. Engaging, optimistic.